Bali.
Right, we've got an interesting story for you here that will, if you're a parent, make you gasp and then breathe a big sigh of relief. Last week, two brothers, 22-year-old Matthew and 18-year-old Andrew Forster, went missing whilst on holiday in Bali.
The pair had set off to climb a 10,000-foot volcano in the jungle, but got lost. And with no phone battery to call for help, they were left stranded.
However, thanks to skills they learned from watching adventurer Bear Grylls over the years as young lads watching the telly, the pair were able to survive and were rescued 40 hours later. It's an extraordinary story. Matthew and Andrew join us here now alongside their mum, Catherine. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Catherine, we'll come to you in just a bit. As a parent with a son who's travelling around at the moment, this was the sort of story that strikes fear into your heart, because I know that my Sam climbed up a couple of the volcanoes and a couple of the hills in Bali as well. Matthew, let's start. Just explain a little bit why the two of you were over there in the first place.
So we went over. We're doing nine weeks travelling Southeast Asia from Vietnam and Thailand, and we wanted to end our trip in Bali because our dad was Australian, and that's where he grew up. We wanted to go see some of the places where he would have spent his summer holidays.
Yes.
You've just finished university, haven't you?
Yes.
And you've just finished your A-levels?
Yeah.
So it was a great excuse for the two of you to go away together and do a little bit of travelling and exploring before the next stage of your lives.
Exactly, yeah.
And you had a very romantic notion of climbing to the top of the volcano, seeing the sunrise.
Yeah, watching.
Did you do any other planning for this trip?
No, not. The planning was where it all went. Nowhere near enough planning. Didn't research into getting a guide. Didn't know that the path we'd chosen was actually closed to the public for years. So
For years?
yeah, it had been closed for years.
Because the one thing, because obviously I immediately phoned my son and said, did you climb this there? And he said, we didn't climb the volcano, you did. And what he was saying was there's quite a lot of well-trodden routes up this volcano, Andrew, quite a lot of tourists. It wasn't unusual that you were trying to climb the volcano, was it?
No, it wasn't. But we'd gone to the wrong side. I think everyone's on the west side, all these tour groups that go up. And we're at the foot on the south side, and we look and we see these lights on the volcano, and we think, oh, there's some tour groups. We're going to go on our route, and we're going to maybe meet them at the top. But no, we didn't get so lucky.
It was an app. You were following an app, weren't you?
Yeah.
So the app was out of date as well?
Yeah, well, the app was showing, there were comments on it saying, oh, you can go with a guide, but we didn't know this and we didn't see it.
So, Matthew, at what point, so you think you're following the app, you think you're doing the right thing, you think you can see other tourists.
Yeah.
At what point did you start to go, actually, we're in a bit of trouble here? I know that the battery went dead on your phone.
Yeah. I'd probably say about 2 hours into the hike, so about 4:30 in the morning, I remember we turned and we were like, should we turn back now? And because it had also started to rain on the way up, and we decided to push on, keep going up, because the jungle was getting thinner.
Yes.
And because we'd just come through the most horrendous part. And because we'd seen those tour lights going up before, we were like, oh, well, we'll surely meet them at the top. And we naively assumed that the top of the volcano would be flat and we'd be able to walk around and meet the others. But when we got to the top, it was completely sheer terrain, covered in cloud, couldn't see more than 20 metres ahead of us. And then that's when our phones decided to die. So it was at the worst point, really.
So at that point, what went through your mind, and what was the conversation that happened between the two of you?
There was a very long conversation then on what do we do now. I was adamant that the best course of action would be to try and scale the terrain around the top and wait for the next morning where another tour would come up for sunrise.
Yeah.
Andrew was...
I wanted to go down and try plough through the jungle.
The way you'd just come?
Yeah, the way we
Yeah,
come.
yeah.
And so in the end, you decided you were going to follow that? That was the idea that you...
Yeah, we kind of went for a blend of...
Yeah, about maybe 2 hours after we reached the top, the rain, we started chucking it down, and it revealed a river along the rocks, so we decided to, follow it downstream.
And that's a tip that you got from Bear Grylls, right?
Yeah.
Where would you learn? Where would you heard that? Did you remember?
Just growing up, watching Bear Grylls with our dads, and he was a scout leader, so we'd done, camps and stuff before. It was one of the things where just always follow a river downstream if you're lost, because that's where, civilization will be, people will be there. And as we did go down, the further down, we did end up hearing chainsaws in the distance. They couldn't hear our, shouts for help. But just hearing humans, it gave us hope.
Yeah.
So.
And then, unbeknownst to you, you've got a friend, Sarah.
Yes.
Was she travelling in Vietnam? Is that right?
Yeah, we met her in Vietnam.
Right. So then she lost contact with you. So then did she call you, Catherine?
Yes, so they had been in touch with her when they'd been going up, and luckily they'd sent screenshots of this app with this route that they were on, and she lost contact with them at like 2 a.m. UK time. She was in Sweden. She couldn't get hold of them the whole of the next day. This was Wednesday.
Right.
I knew nothing about this. That night, she reported them missing to the embassy, and I was oblivious. And 6 o'clock the following morning, by which time nothing been heard from them for like 30 hours, I tried to call them and I couldn't. And then I looked on Find My Phone and I saw they would last 2 days ago up a mountain. But even then, I wasn't that worried. And then a friend of theirs managed to get hold of me, and I spoke to her, and she told me, and I said, well, you know, tell me they were with a guide. And she was like, they weren't with a guide. And I told them to turn round, and she said, but I've reported them missing. And then I was straight on the phone to the Foreign Office. And then I sort of put a collective voice note on a WhatsApp group of my local friends, and our local friends just dropped everything, came to my house. Their kids started putting out messages which went to hostels in Bali, and like an army, basically, to
start trying to track you down.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, the two of you had to make a shelter because it was nighttime now.
Yeah, so the night we just followed the river down until the sun had set, and then it became too dangerous to proceed because it was really slippery. And I actually had a bad fall, which fortunately didn't break anything. But we ended up just having to sleep on the side of the river, just padded down some leaves, freezing cold. Like, we spent the night like cuddled together because it was so cold. And the next day,
How scary was it?
it was scary. When we fell, that was really scary. But I think the biggest fear was knowing what everyone at home was going through, because we were alive. We knew we were alive and not injured. But obviously, everyone at home was fearing the worst.
So how were you essentially found in the end?
We'd just been coming down the mountain. We'd been shouting, help, help, help us. And say around 6 o'clock, so about half an hour before the sunset, we hear noises from the woods, and it's the rescue team. And yeah.
What was that moment like?
I didn't want to call it too early.
Yeah.
But Matthew was.
I was like, oh, we're gonna make it home for Mum's birthday. And like Andrew was like, don't say that yet. We're not off just yet. But it was really special when they shouted to us. They're like, you two boys are very, very, and they were like looking for us. I was like, stupid. They're like extremely stupid.
Yes.
they'd got stuck at the river had gone, and they were stuck at the top of a big drop.
It was like a waterfall.
So they'd made like a base, and they'd put SOS, but the next morning, because it was just getting dark, they'd have had to try to get through the jungle, but the guys that got to them were literally hacking through the jungle.
So they had machetes to get through.
Well, they were saying you were very, very stupid, but you were also very smart because you remembered everything that Bear Grylls said.
Yeah.
We actually have a message from Bear Grylls for you guys now. Take a look at this.
I'm so happy, so proud that you made it out in one piece. Good for you. What an experience you've been through. But key lessons for people to learn, that if you ever find yourself just going out for a hike and get lost, is always to remember, first of all, tell somebody where you're going and when you're due back. And secondly, always take a hard copy of a map. Even if it's just take a screenshot and then print it out quickly, just so you've got something that's not electronic. But above all, I think the reason you guys made it out is you have each other. And that is so valuable. I've learnt in terms of survival, 1 + 1 in survival is different to normal maths. It doesn't equal 2, it equals about 5 or 6. I'm so proud of you guys, well done.
There you go.
Take a map.
Big relief.
Yeah,
Take a map.
Have they started talking about going away again yet, Catherine?
We're actually going to Australia at the end of July because my husband died a couple of years ago. We're going to put his ashes in the ocean.
You won't be letting them out of your sight?
Yeah, you're going together. It's a
We're going
team.
together.
It's a team.
Boys, we're very, very relieved
We are.
that you're here to tell the tale and share those sort of warning signs.
Yeah,
Do
you're
some
smashing,
research.
lads.
Yeah.
Don't do that to your mum again.
Take a guide. Hard copy of maps as well. Well, it's great to have you here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.